and unsurpassed, penetrating and perfect Dharma is rarely met with, even in 100,000 million kalpas. Having it to see and listen to, remember and accept, I vow to taste the truth of the Tathagata's words. Well, welcome today. Good to see everyone here and everyone online as well. I'm going to talk a little bit today about part of my practice and the idea of living life beyond likes and dislikes. And I don't think I could have picked a better topic for today, considering this is my first time through the doshi roll on a Sunday. So I've been practicing now for about 8 years, and I've learned a number of the temple rolls. I've learned the shoten, which is the bell in the back. I've learned the doan, which leads the service. I've learned the jisha, which offers the incense and assists the priest. And so every time I did those, I know that I questioned everything I did the whole time I did it, whether I did it right or whether I did it wrong or whether anybody was paying attention. And I guarantee you today I was thinking the same thing. So I appreciate everyone being here today and helping me get through this. I'm going to talk a little bit today. This is a book by Shokin Wyckoff Roshi. He's the abbot of Ramanji Zen Monastery up in Northeast Iowa. This is his most recent book, and it's Passing Through the Dragon Gate. And it's a very accessible book for learning about Zen practice. These are a compilation of articles he writes for the local paper in Decorah. I think once a month they have a different denomination or different religion present a talk. So he has compiled all these, and I believe these are also artwork of various Sangha members of Ramanji and here at Des Moines Zen Center. Asian, is your sister? Your sister has some in here as well. So anyway, I recommend it if you get a chance. But I want to talk about engaging life under our feet. So what's under our feet is our practice. Shokin Wyckoff Roshi, the abbot of Ramanji Zen Monastery, talks a lot about dealing with life under our feet. He's talking about the understanding that we need to practice with things in life as they are, not as we would like them to be. He often asks, can you get beyond your likes and dislikes and truly meet the moment as it is? In his recent book, he states that what under our foot is the essential thing. To deal with things as they are is to practice suchness, or thusness, or as it isness, ultimate reality here in the present moment. This was a core teaching of Dogen, the monk who's transmitted our lineage from China to Japan, and also the founder of Soto Zen. Otherwise, if we aren't practicing suchness and attending to life as it is, we are just fighting our delusions of how we want things to be, choosing between our likes and avoiding our dislikes at all costs. The gap this creates between us and the universe is immense and leads to our suffering. The Buddha talked about the Four Noble Truths and suffering and the cause of suffering and the cessation of suffering. We are the cause of our suffering. To practice suchness, Dogen says, is a matter of everydayness. The way of Zen practice is directly before us. When we engage with what's under our feet, we engage with the endless future. This is the only place in which the future meets the present, at our feet. How we handle each moment is the essential matter. Do you see what is under your foot? Do you handle it? This is wholehearted practice. Last year, we spent some time in our Zen study group reading and discussing the practice of Zazen, the seated meditation, and the experience of suchness. So we talked about how we practice Zazen. We practice Zazen here on the cushion. We try to take our Zazen into daily life. At one point, we discussed how Zazen is our life. So what we experience in Zazen is our life. You see, our minds are always running stories to distract us from the present. I'm sure you've seen those stories. I know I have. These stories are the stories of our lives. We cling to the past. We worry about the future. Our mind is always trying to move beyond what it perceives as boredom or fear of the present moment. When we sit in Zazen, everything is as it is. There's nothing to do but just sit. We have lots of thoughts about life. We create the worlds in which we live. We conceptualize things and focus on the things we like and move away from the things we dislike. But that is not how life always is. We need to practice life in accordance with what the Dharma demands, not based upon what our likes and dislikes are. We live in a culture that emphasizes striving and focusing on attaining fame and fortune. Everywhere you look, the Dharma, little d, is being remade so that people will like it. Now, the distinction between big D Dharma and little d Dharma is that a big D means Buddha's teachings. Little d Dharma is a word for each thing in the universe, and by extension, the whole universe. Things that people don't like are pushed away, such as actions like prostrating before an altar, shaving our head, or sitting facing a wall for 40 minutes. Or we'll discard concepts that we don't really agree with, such as rebirth or reincarnation, without really kind of chewing on them for a while. Furthermore, if there are things that people like that are missing, they are added in to placate the worrying mind. So it is easy in our Western practice to find comfort and avoid things we don't like. Ultimately, we may realize that this doesn't lead to happiness. Instead, we find ourselves constantly seeking and avoiding, generally ignoring what is under our feet, constantly distracted. We're always finding ourselves churning in samsara. One of the first ways I engaged in practicing what was under my feet was realizing the extent and conditions of my likes and dislikes. I had been practicing for only a short time, less than a year, maybe 8 months or so, and I attended a session at Ramanji. I remember asking someone more experienced than me at the time what it took to become lay ordained. I was told that if I wanted to be lay ordained, that I needed to act like I was lay ordained, and to sew a rakasu, a miniature version of the large priest robe that hangs around many practitioners' necks. The distinction I realized between my question and the answer I received was that Jukai, the public lay ordination ceremony, was only one aspect for recognizing a practitioner that didn't denote anything beyond the label. The practice was in the day-to-day actions of dealing with life as it is, not as I wanted it to be. But what did it mean to act lay ordained? I remember listening to a Dharma talk by Shokin Roshi at the session where he talked about getting beyond our likes and dislikes. He talked about how we think we know how things might be when we're faced with difficulties. Are we living life in a way where we're able to stand up in the moment as we need to? That had a big impact on my thinking because I never questioned the impact of my likes and dislikes on my life. I thought a discriminating mind was the key to dealing with my immediate reality. If I could out-talk, out-think, or outwork, force my way to an outcome, then that was the appropriate way to live life. It's what I saw everyone else doing. I didn't focus on the cycle of samsara manifest in my actions when I didn't get my way, or when I did. When I left the session, I was exhausted and had a lot on my mind to think about. I remember doing a lot of dishes, and I had a sore back. I reflected on my experience with eating the oryoki meals. This is a type of formal eating where practitioners are served meals on their tons in the soto. So it'd be the equivalent of we sit here all day and then it's time to eat, so we turn around and we're sitting, eating where we sit still. The food was very simple, but when it's a shin, your hunger changes the way you see food. I found every bite to be delicious and deliberate. The meals are served to us by servers, and we offer a meal chant throughout the service. One of the verses of the meal chant goes like this: "Innumerable labors have brought us this food. We should know how it comes to us." This experience got me to question how I looked at food. I saw this experience as a simple way to deepen my practice. What a better way to take a step in the direction beyond likes and dislikes. I wouldn't say that I understood what moving beyond likes and dislikes was, but I played with the concept for a period of time. When I encountered an opportunity to have an opinion of food that I would eat, I refrained from picking and choosing. Instead, I would tell myself that I would eat anything that was prepared for me. I spent this time watching how my body and mind reacted. I quickly realized that choices in food are a luxury that not everyone has, and the choices we make can often lead to suffering. From a practical standpoint, food is a huge source of suffering for all sentient beings, whether we eat meat or not. Whether we kill animals for proteins or destroy biodiversity for crops or rely on heavily processed foods, we are taking part in the causes and conditions of suffering. To refuse food that is prepared for us is a waste of food. Not fully understanding, I switched my diet for a period of time, only to realize all the suffering that existed in my decisions about food. What I found was that my choice to not eat meat led others to suffer as well. I live in a rural community outside of Des Moines. Despite the fact that we purport to feed the world, when living in rural Iowa, one is faced with the reality of a food desert. Food choices can be limited and often not what we want to eat. By being aware of my food choices, I realized how my decisions about food made me feel. I could sense when I was hungry and what that actually felt like rather than eating mindlessly because of boredom or stress. I could sense when I was uncomfortable with food choices, and I would examine why I felt that way. I could even sense when choices I made about food made other people uncomfortable. I realized as part of this exercise that my idea of food and suffering was incomplete, but that by being engaged in my thoughts about food, I was engaging in my life. By really addressing the idea of food in my life, I was dealing with decisions that were under my feet. It may seem extreme to suggest that decisions we make don't matter, particularly when we talk about food. To be fair, I'm not saying that. Our mind is full of all the stories we tell ourselves. Without engaging our decisions and recognizing why we make the choices we make, examining our likes and dislikes, we go mindlessly through life. By sitting in Zazen or working through our day, we encounter our lives as they are, as suchness. This is important in our Soto Zen practice. Life can be difficult, and avoiding things we don't like just adds to the difficulty. Standing up and dealing with life as we encounter it is liberating. May the merit of this penetrate into each thing in all places, so that we and every sentient being together can realize the Buddha way. Sentient beings are numberless. I vow to save them. Desires are inexhaustible.